These are the freshest herbs you'll ever taste, and they'll never touch a single grain of dirt. This is container hydroponics, specifically the Kratky method, and it's how to grow herbs at home without soil using a system so simple it was literally invented with an old refrigerator lying on its back. Before we dig in, I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever tried growing anything without soil before? Or would this be your very first time? Drop a first timer or done it before in the comments. I read every single one. I know what you're thinking. Growing plants without soil sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, or maybe a NASA experiment. But here's the reality. Hydroponics, which is just the fancy word for growing plants in nutrient-rich water instead of dirt, has been around since roughly 600 BC. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon are considered one of the earliest examples of soilless cultivation. This is ancient wisdom meeting modern convenience. And unlike aquaponics, which uses fish waste as a nutrient source, hydroponic systems rely on mineral nutrient solutions, which means you get precise control over exactly what your plants eat. And the modern version is absolutely exploding. The global hydroponics market hit $17.2 billion in 2025 and is projected to reach nearly $31.8 billion by 2030. 60% of vertical farms worldwide now run hydroponic systems. China alone operates over 50,000 hydroponic facilities. The Netherlands has 80% of its greenhouses running on this technology. This isn't some fringe hobby anymore. This is how a significant chunk of the world's food is already being grown. But here's what matters to you and me. You don't need a commercial greenhouse. You don't need thousands of dollars in equipment, and you don't need a plug-in system like an Aero garden. You can start growing fresh basil, mint, cilantro, parsley, and chives on your kitchen counter for under $40 with a simple container-based setup, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do it, step by step, including the mistakes that trip up almost every beginner. Let's start with why you'd even want to ditch the soil in the first place, because the reasons are genuinely compelling. First, water. Hydroponics uses up to 90% less water than traditional soil gardening. 90%. In a world where water conservation is becoming more critical by the year, that's a staggering difference. The water in a hydroponic system recirculates or sits in a closed container, so very little is lost to evaporation or runoff compared to a garden bed where most of the water just drains away. Second, speed. Hydroponic herbs grow faster, full stop. When a plant's roots are sitting directly in a nutrient solution, it doesn't have to work to find food. It doesn't have to push through compacted clay or compete with weeds. The nutrients are right there, immediately available. Basil, for example, can go from seed to harvest in as little as 30 days in a hydroponic setup. That's half the time it might take in a traditional garden bed. Third, pests and disease. No soil means dramatically fewer problems with soil-borne diseases, fungus gnats, root rot from overwatering, and all those other headaches that make indoor gardening frustrating. You're eliminating an entire category of problems just by removing the growing medium. And fourth, seasonality becomes irrelevant. You're not waiting for spring, you're not watching the weather forecast. With a basic light setup, you can grow fresh herbs 12 months a year, whether it's January in Minnesota or August in Arizona. So which herbs should you actually grow? Not every herb performs equally well in soilless systems. The absolute best are basil, mint, cilantro, chives, and parsley. These are your reliable workhorses. They root quickly, they grow vigorously, and they're the herbs most of us actually reach for in the kitchen on a regular basis. Beyond those five, oregano is a fantastic choice. It roots in water in just a few weeks and grows fast. Lemon balm thrives indoors and fills your kitchen with this incredible refreshing scent. Dill works well too. Now, a word of caution. Rosemary and sage are trickier in hydroponic systems. They prefer drier conditions, they're slower to root, and they're generally better left for soil. Don't start with those. Start with basil or mint. Build your confidence, and then experiment. Quick question while we're here. Which herb do you reach for the most when you're cooking? Basil, mint, cilantro, something else? Let me know in the comments, because that just might be the perfect herb for you to start with. All right, let's talk systems. There are several types of hydroponic setups, but I'm going to focus on the three that make the most sense for home herb growers, starting with the absolute simplest, the Kratky method. This is where I want you to begin, and the story behind it is genuinely fascinating. Bernard Kratky is a researcher emeritus at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He earned his bachelor's in agronomy from the University of Wisconsin in 1967, then his master's and PhD in horticulture from Purdue. The man has spent his entire career studying how plants grow. Back in the 1980s, Kratky traveled to Taiwan to study at the Asian Vegetable Research and Development Center. While he was there, he noticed researchers growing crops hydroponically, without any electricity or aeration whatsoever. No pumps, no bubblers, nothing. This ran completely contrary to everything the hydroponic world believed at the time. So honestly, he dismissed it and moved on to other research. But years later, back in Hawaii, the idea kept nagging at him. So he and a farm foreman did something beautifully ridiculous. They removed the door from an old refrigerator, laid it on its back, filled it with water, put a makeshift cover on top, and suspended young tomato plants above the nutrient solution with their roots dangling into the water below. No pumps, no power, no moving parts whatsoever. And it worked. He formally published the method in the journal Acta Horticulturae in 2009, and it's since been described as the simplest hydroponic system in existence. It's passive. You set it up and basically forget about it. And here's something that speaks to the man's character. The 2 hydroponic patents Kratky once held have now expired, and the technology can be used freely by anyone for any legal purpose. He deliberately made it open source because he believed cost should never be a barrier to growing food. So how does the Kratky method actually work? Here's the beautiful science behind it. You fill a container with nutrient solution and suspend a plant above it so just the very bottom of the roots touch the water. As the plant drinks and grows, the water level drops. That growing gap between the water surface and the base of the plant fills with moist air. The roots in that gap become what are called oxygen roots. They branch out laterally and absorb oxygen directly from the air inside the container, while the lower roots continue drinking the nutrient solution below. By the time the water is fully depleted, the plant should be ready to harvest. One fill, one growing cycle, no refilling, no monitoring pumps, no electricity. It is elegantly simple. Here's the exact step-by-step setup. You need a container. A mason jar works perfectly for a single plant. You need a lid with a hole cut or drilled large enough to fit a 2-inch net cup. You need that net cup and a growing medium to hold your seeds. Rock wool is the classic choice and works great. If you'd prefer something different, leca, that's lightweight expanded clay aggregate, sometimes called clay pebbles, is an excellent reusable alternative. Coco coir is another popular option that retains moisture well and is completely natural. Perlite or vermiculite also work if you have them on hand. For most beginners, rock wool is the easiest to start with. You'll also need some herb seeds and a hydroponic nutrient solution. A 4-jar setup runs under $40 total. Step 1. Take your mason jar and cut or drill a hole in the lid sized for your net cup. Step 2. Soak your growing medium in water. Place it in the net cup and tuck your herb seeds into it. Step 3. Place the net cup into the hole in the lid. Step 4. Fill the jar with clean water until it just touches the bottom 1/4 inch of the net cup, and this part is critical. No more than a 1/4 inch submerged. Overfilling eliminates the air gap before it can form, which suffocates the roots. Trust the process. Step 5. Once seeds sprout in a few days, add your hydroponic nutrients to the water. That's it. Your plant does the rest. Beyond the Kratky method, there are 2 other beginner-friendly systems worth knowing about. The wick system is even cheaper and works like a kid's science project with a 2-liter bottle. Plants draw nutrients up through a wick from a reservoir below. No pumps, no electricity. It's incredibly basic and works well for small herbs. Then there's deep water culture, or DWC. This is where plant roots are fully submerged in nutrient solution and an air stone connected to an air pump, just like you'd find in a fish tank setup, bubbles oxygen into the water continuously. A 5-gallon bucket can hold 1 or 2 plants. It's a small step up in complexity from Kratky, but it gives you more control and can produce slightly faster growth because of the constant oxygenation. The air stone and air pump are the key pieces of equipment that make DWC work, so don't skip them if you go this route. There's also nutrient film technique, or NFT, which you may have seen in larger home setups. It runs a thin film of nutrient solution continuously over the roots through a sloped channel. It's efficient and scalable, but more complex than any of the 3 beginner options above. Worth knowing the name as you grow into the hobby. For your first setup, though, go with Kratky. Now let's talk about the details that separate success from failure, because these are the things that trip up almost every beginner. Light is probably the #1 factor in indoor herb growing. Most culinary herbs need 12 to 16 hours of daily light. If you have a sunny south-facing window that gets 6 to 8 hours of intense direct sunlight, that can work. But for most people, especially in winter, you'll need a grow light. A 100 to 200 watt full-spectrum LED will handle a small herb setup easily. Place the light 6 to 12 inches above the leaves and plug it into a timer set for 14 to 16 hours. Here's a detail most people don't know. The color spectrum of your light actually matters. Blue light encourages compact leafy growth, which is exactly what you want from herbs. Red light stimulates photosynthesis and can influence the production of aromatic compounds. Research has shown that a red to blue ratio, near 3 to 1, produces the best combination of biomass and aromatic intensity, especially for herbs like basil. Most full-spectrum LEDs are already designed with something close to this ratio, so don't overthink it. Just make sure you're buying a full-spectrum grow light and not a regular household bulb. Running lights fewer than 12 hours produces slow, stretched, leggy growth. Running them beyond 16 hours stresses most herbs. Find your sweet spot in that 12 to 16 hour range and stay consistent. pH is the single most important measurement in your hydroponic system, and it's absolutely non-negotiable. Your herbs need a pH between 5.5 and 6.5. Outside this range, nutrient lockout happens fast. Your plants will stall even when there are plenty of nutrients in the solution, because they simply can't absorb them at the wrong pH. Pick up a basic pH testing kit or a digital pH meter. Test 2 to 3 times a week. Adjust with pH up or pH down solutions, which are inexpensive and available at any garden supply store or online. This one habit will prevent more problems than almost anything else you do. For nutrients, use fertilizer specifically designed for hydroponic systems. Don't grab a bag of Miracle Grow from the garden center and dump it in your water. Conventional fertilizer may not dissolve completely, can clog systems, and doesn't provide the right balance of micronutrients for soilless growing. Hydroponic nutrients are formulated to be fully water-soluble and deliver everything your plants need in the right ratios. Brands like General Hydroponics are widely available and a good starting point. Their Flora series is one of the most commonly used nutrient lines among home growers. For nutrient concentration, most herbs perform well in an EC range of 1.0 to 1.6. EC stands for electrical conductivity, and it measures how much dissolved nutrient is in your water. Beginners often assume more nutrients equals faster growth. It doesn't. Overfeeding causes nutrient burn, yellow leaves, and stunted growth. Start at the lower end of the recommended range on your nutrient bottle and increase only if plants look like they need it. Temperature matters too. Keep your growing area and your nutrient solution between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Too warm and the water holds less dissolved oxygen, which invites root rot. Too cold and growth slows dramatically. Keep your setup away from cold drafts and heating vents. Water quality catches people off guard. Don't pour chlorinated tap water straight into your system. Chlorine can damage tender root tissue. If you're using tap water, just fill a container and let it sit out overnight. The chlorine will off-gas naturally. Even better, use stored rainwater, spring water, or well water. Air circulation is another one people overlook. Without good airflow around your plants, heat and humidity build up fast, leading to mold, mildew, and pest issues. A small oscillating fan pointed near your setup solves this completely, and it also strengthens stems as plants gently sway in the breeze. For maintenance, Kratky systems need very little attention. For more active systems, top up with fresh nutrient solution regularly, replacing at least 20 to 30% of the water volume every 1 to 2 weeks. Completely drain and refill your reservoir once a month to prevent salt buildup. Let me consolidate the biggest beginner mistakes into a clear list so you can sidestep every one of them. Ignoring pH, poor or insufficient lighting, using the wrong nutrients or the wrong strength. Not enough oxygen at the roots, which is why the air gap in the Kratky system is so critical. Weak air circulation, and running your system too hot or too cold. Avoid those 6 things, and you'll be ahead of 90% of people who try hydroponics for the first time. Now, if you're wondering whether this is just a passing trend, consider this. Herbs and microgreens are currently the fastest growing crop group in the entire hydroponics industry, expanding at a 12.6% compound annual growth rate through 2031. Small home systems specifically are projected to grow at 13.3% annually through that same period. The United States hydroponics market alone reached $3.3 billion in 2024. Singapore is mandating that 10% of its local vegetable production come from hydroponics by 2030. The UAE has over 500 hydroponic farms already supplying 20% of its leafy greens. This isn't going away. If anything, the movement toward growing food at home, in less space, with less water, using no pesticides, is accelerating. And that brings us full circle. A mason jar, a net cup, some rock wool or clay pebbles, nutrient solution, a seed, and a light. That's your container hydroponics starting kit. Under $40. Harvestable herbs in 3 to 4 weeks. No soil, no drainage trays, no daily watering, no seasonal limitations. Bernard Kratky dreamed up this method because he believed everyone should be able to grow their own food regardless of their budget, their space, or their experience level. An old refrigerator lying on its back in Hawaii eventually became a movement that's now spread worldwide through YouTube videos, community forums, and kitchen windowsills everywhere. So here's the challenge. Pick one herb, just one. Basil is my recommendation because it's fast and forgiving. Set up a single Kratky jar this weekend. Follow the steps, monitor your pH, give it proper light, and in about 30 days, walk over to that jar, pinch off a handful of the freshest basil you've ever smelled, and drop it into whatever you're cooking. That first harvest changes something in you. It makes you realize that the freshest, most flavorful food doesn't come from a grocery store. It doesn't even come from a garden bed. It comes from a jar of water sitting quietly on your counter while you go about your day. Start simple. Start small. Start this weekend. Your kitchen will thank you. Now I want to hear from you. Which herb are you going to grow first, and where are you setting up your Kratky jar? Tell me in the comments below, and if you run into any questions along the way, ask them right there. I answer as many as I possibly can. And if this video helped you, do me a quick favor. Smash that like button so more beginners can discover it. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new grow guide. And if you'd like to support the channel and unlock exclusive perks, tap that join button and become a member of the Plant Care Secrets TV family. Thank you so much for watching. Now go grow something amazing.